everybody? Bike Builder Bear checking in, saying hi. As you can hear, my voice isn't normal, and I haven't been making any videos for a little bit because I got sick. I breathed a bunch of trashy smoke from the Camarillo mountain fires. I got a bronchial infection, sick, and was out of work for about a week. And I've been having to catch up at work and try to recover, which has been really hard. So let's get into what I've been doing while I've been on hiatus. Somewhere in the midst of getting sick, Joseph got sick as well. And somewhere in the midst of that, Joseph got the wild hair up his ass to buy a better 212 4-valve high compression motor for his CHONDA clone. So he graciously gave me his 212 2-valve. And because I am of a different feather than a lot of these chickens out in this world, I'm not just going to go straight into throwing the 212 into my bike, replacing the 125. We'll start off with, I tried to make my 125 as optimal as possible, and I found the wall of performance before you have to go to major internal parts. And I looked up the price, I put everything together, and the cost of building a 125 that is comparable to the power you get out of these motors, whether you get the Daytona, the Zhongzheng, or the Zhengzong, whichever, and in comparison, it's not worth it. I know the parts, it's easy to look up the cost, but for internals, for a 4-stroke 125, and you're trying to work with a non-name brand, the cost is just outrageous to try to get that 5-star quality. I gotta say that the 125 did a good job. I had a lot of fun with it. We sold both of those 125s to a friend of mine that is actually gonna throw the one motor that I had in my bike into this chopper. It's a chopper that had like some oddball motor in it, but he's gonna put that motor into a chopper and do something custom with that. Hopefully I see that project completed in the future, and I'll try to take some footage and make a little video about it. But the 125 built up the way I did, with just a cam, a little bit of porting, and messing with the carburetors and intake and stuff. You can have fun and you can save a buck and get around. But like me, I weigh 200 pounds to 220, depending on how much drinking and fast food I'm eating that month. And for someone that's 200 pounds plus, the 125 just ain't gonna cut it. Even around town, you'll find yourself always trying to chase the high RPM just to keep up or to keep out of the way of traffic. So unless you're just completely happy with everybody on the street passing you by, the 125 is not gonna satisfy, especially if you're a heavier person like me. Now, if you are 150, 130 pounds and you're light, it'll work for you. You can get that thing up to 70 miles an hour. You can do it without spending an arm and a leg. But after a good set of miles and riding my buddies with the 212 and riding mine back and forth from work with the 125, I'm glad that I'm going to the 212 now, because the 5th gear and the power to be able to actually scoot my fat ass out of the way really helps, and it makes the bike a lot more enjoyable to ride. So I would say even if you're not getting the what would be said is the better ones, which are supposed to be of better quality from Daytona, and then the other, I mean, I see the way that they're sold online, and a lot of times it says 212 better than Daytona 190, and I've heard guys say that the Daytona motor is better because it's Japanese made. This motor right here, I think, has about 1,100 miles on it, and it purrs like a sewing machine. It has not given me any indication that it's not worth putting in, except for the oil venting issue. Now, the new 4-valve that my buddy has this weird canister that we're wondering if it's like a return canister for the oil vent. We'll see, but hopefully the newer version of this 212 has fixed that oil venting issue. That was the only thing that this motor discouraged me with, was the fact that it kept spitting oil through the air case venting system. But I mitigated that. I got it fixed. It doesn't leak any oil anymore, and it runs like a top. So that I can say. And I'm lucky that my buddy forked over the money for that motor and ran it at first, because it is not easy to just, especially in this day and age, just to drop $1,000 to $1,500 with shipping to get one of these motors on top of the purchase price that you've already spent, depending on the model and the year that you just got. I would say, in my personal opinion, if you want to get into this range of performance but you don't have a lot of mechanical knowledge, you might want to go in the direction of the Condor RS 150s or the KP RS 150s that are fuel injected by Elfie. I think Elfie is the company that makes them. And my guy Pete at Chronic Motorsports, he is selling those. If I was going to have to buy a new motor, I wasn't going to buy a new motor. I was just going to sell this thing and go get one of those, because they've got them now with a 5-speed, better looking brakes. The build altogether looks more solid, like a Suzuki or Yamaha, or a mainline name, and it has fuel injection. And from what he says at Chronic Motorsports is that him and another company made a exhaust for those and ran it on a dyno, and even made a map and tuned it and stuff like that, which if they're able to do that with a bike that you're spending under $3,000 for, man, that is the ticket. That's the way to go. I would do that all the way. Then again, I've got to be honest, I have put very little money into this, because even when we bought these at first, I didn't buy mine. Joseph bought 2 of these for $2,400. He had some inheritance money, and we were looking at these for a little while. Excuse me. And he just bought them. And then literally like 2 days later, he bought that motor. And we've been tinkering and modifying these for about 2 years now, I think, or a little over a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And he's been hearing about the 4 valves, and I gotta say, he did get a sour taste in his mouth, because he couldn't figure out the oil venting problem. So he bought this motor, handed me down that motor. Wonderful. And I gotta say, I'm an old junkyard dog. I know stuff about motors from motorcycles back from when I was a kid, and some great experience that I got. So I handmade a little expansion chamber pipe, a moderate expansion chamber pipe just for this little thing. It sounds so thumpy, and it has a nice little touch of power to it because of that pipe that I made, handmade. And truthfully, on these bikes, that's going to be the thing that makes and breaks it all. Is you want to go through these bikes and you want to put Loctite, you want to change anything that is questionable in your mind. I would start with brakes. The brake master cylinder for the rear is okay stock. It works, but it's minimal at best. It could be improved by just getting a steel braided lines. Exchange the brake lines out for steel braided lines. I've done the back and I've ordered the front. I'm waiting for my front one to come in the mail. That should be here by this weekend, and I will be changing this expanding, soft, flexible hose, getting out of there. And then you have a way better feel of feedback from your brakes. That would be the number one thing that I would do before anything on these bikes, is clean up the wires. Make sure that all the wires are connected and free. They kind of spaghetti them around the frame, which isn't needed. You can put everything in a uniform line going up and down the backbone and organized to where it's not confusing. It's easy to get to things, and it only takes maybe 20 to 30 minutes to just kind of pull stuff off and reroute it and put everything back ergonomically. Put dielectric gel on all your connection points to where you don't get any corrosion or water in there or anything to mess up your connections. Helps keep your connections solid. Make sure that your plugs don't come apart just vibration and pulling, and if they do, take zip ties and zip tie those connections together. You know, if you want to throw the extra money in and get rotors, I recommend it. I haven't done it yet. It's a good idea to go get some aftermarket rotors for an OEM 2016 to 2018 Grom. If you got one of these, most of the 2016 to 2018 parts, a lot of that parts will just fit right on these bikes and similar. But definitely brakes right away. Replace the front master cylinder with even a Chinese one off of eBay with the cheap. That will give you more braking power. You don't need to go buy calipers and spend a bunch of money. I'm staying with the stock calipers. I coated mine with the gold ceramic coating. I coated my triple trees with the gold ceramic coating, and it looks wonderful. The braking power of the rear brake with the steel braided line and an upgraded rear master cylinder is way more braking power than you need for that tiny little tire. But the feedback again is what you get, and the no sponginess in the braking is what you get. So always start with the aesthetics, because if you just go to putting a bunch of power in this thing and your wiring's messed up, you can't stop, and then after that, after the suspension, I say immediately, if you only have a couple of bucks here and there, go buy a bottle of good fork oil and change the fork oil out of the stock forks and put exactly as much oil that came out back in. Make sure you clean them with brake cleaner to get all the old oil out so it doesn't contaminate the good oil. I would recommend using a thicker oil for like a Harley Davidson or a heavier bike like that, because the valving in these stock is set up for a tiny little Chinese person or something. It's not set up for anybody heavy. And even if you're not heavy, if you're doing stunts and jumping and stuff like that, you're gonna want that thicker oil. And then if you can spring money, get rid of that rear shock. Even if you get the same size shock, just get anything that's better. You might have to spend $100+ dollars to get a good one. If you have experience, you can get a decent one like I did that looks good, and then you could be an old junkyard dog like me. I have other suspension parts from other stuff, you know, in little boxes and stuff hiding in my little treasure chest, you know, and so I have the ability to take a cheap shock apart that's made out of good aluminum pieces, pull it apart, change the fluid, change the valving, put it back together, and that's what I got. I got an inch over suspension on the rear, better suspension. I love my suspension. The shock on the rear is awesome. It just hooks, it makes that front end come up when you pop the clutch, and it rides like a bad mofo when you're in the turns. So brakes, suspension, make sure your electrical is legit. And then headlight. If you don't got a good headlight, don't be riding at night. You can get one of these Chinese style, you know what I mean, eBay, AliExpress specials and wire them in. It'll only take you a couple hours at most. Do all your electrical connections professionally. If you like crimps, do crimps. If you like soldering, do it right so it doesn't get brittle and crumble with vibration and stuff. That's all I would have to say really about that. And no, I've decided I am never going to put a bunch of links in the description below. I want you assholes to comment and ask me questions and me have to interact with you back. I don't want to be just making these videos and you assholes, sorry for calling you assholes, but you joik-offs just stealing my knowledge and not coming and talking to the bear. So, no. You know, in most cases I would say don't judge a guy's engine from his paint job. But on motorcycles, I have to say it's the opposite. When you have all your aesthetics clean and looking proper and eye-popping and everybody wants to look at it because it's clean, you know the motorcycle runs right. You know it's good. Unless there's some catastrophic failure that was beyond the mechanics or the builder's fault. Or partially their fault, but most of the time it's beyond them. It's a failure that they couldn't foresee. But, you know, don't be afraid to save your money and make smaller purchases and do your aesthetics and get everything, because that's the direction I went. I had just about everything done before I got the big motor, and it benefited me. Similar to like the homies at Donut, you know, try to convey is you don't need a Lamborghini motor, you know, and Lamborghini speed to really have fun driving. You know, it's better to drive a shitty car fast. You have a lot more fun to drive a slow shitty car fast than a really fast car and be so scared that you can't even really let the power out. So again, I'm very excited. This motor's power matches the visualization that I put together with everything on this bike. You know, the power and the looks go hand in hand now. It's not a super fast bike, but this motor does it justice. Now, again, in the future, my next plans are to get some really nice rotors, some nice steel or hardened steel, whatever they are, really nice rotors, and I'm going to do suspension. I'm going to get the same forks as Joseph's, but I'm going to rebuild them and put some really nice sport bike shock oil in them to, you know, make them last a little bit longer and perform a little better. Because even like my shock, I bought a decent shock. It's from China. From Thailand. And yeah, the oil that was in it, looked like it had like fine coffee grounds in it. It was disgusting, and it didn't even seem like to be a real oil for suspension. So, go figure. Well, I apologize for the hiatus. Couple of weeks I didn't post anything, but let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and please check out the videos in the future. God bless and have a good day.